Good morning, world, and welcome to another episode of Tundratula's Sofa Safari. To avoid putting any stress. Sorry, earlier I've been drinking yet again. To avoid putting any stress on our dear camera lady and making her fine lines and leopards, going out this morning without a mission. We're just going to go see what we can find, go check in some of our less traversed areas. But before we do that, just a few shout outs to Dr. Jennifer Matchy from Phoenix, Arizona. Just want to say hello to you and welcome to the Sofa Safaris. Hope it's bringing back some great memories of your previous trips to Tundratula. And then also just a few birthday wishes to Gabriella Bianchi from Switzerland and Alice Beaumont from Johannesburg. Just wishing you guys both, I think you turned 21 again, both of you. So happy birthday for the weekend, and hope you enjoy this episode too. Cheers. We've had quite a few questions about these chaps, believe it or not, called Niala. Now, if you've never been to Africa before, you are not going to be expecting to see an antelope as beautiful as this, perhaps, and it's probably going to be one of the first ones you forget the name of, because it's not a very typical English name, the Niala, N-Y-A-L-A. But if you visited Tundratula, you will know how common they are, because they frequent our camp area. And we see them every day, the families of them, moms and babies, the beautiful big males like that one who's just crossed the riverbed. But out on drive, they're not really something that we see very often. So we have taken note of these requests, and we will definitely try to show you some more Nialas. But the reason we don't is that we don't really see them very often out on drive. They like this dense, thick riverine vegetation that we're finding here along the Charlumi, and because of that, they tend to hide very well. I'm just quite lucky that in the camp they are very, very accustomed to people and show themselves beautifully. We have spiders, lots of spiders, an arachnophobe's worst nightmare. Can see them beautifully now. It's quite a dewy morning, that's why I'm moaning about the grass. My shoes are getting wet. But this condensation is being captured very nicely on the web structures of these tropical tent spiders that are small little spiders, about that size, and they make these structures that are kind of pinched up in the middle, like a pitched tent, and they wait for the insects to kind of get knocked down by these lines of web, and then they're going to fall onto the web through there, and that's when the spider's going to move out to that point, kind of pull it through the horizontal layer and subdue the prey, and then, as we said the other day, kind of digest it outside the body and then have soup for breakfast. Unlike the bark spider from the other day, these webs do not get dismantled on a daily basis, but these will stay and grow as the spiders themselves get bigger. From causing animals to sleep to causing animals to want to piggyback on one another. Slightly interesting situation here. It's actually two male giraffes. The guy in front is just trying to have breakfast. The guy behind is trying to assert dominance. When you see males of the same species mounting each other and emulating the reproductive ways of the species, the one doing the mounting is usually the dominant one. You can see here he's slightly bigger, and it's just a way of asserting dominance. So this is found in quite regularly in young elephant males doing it. Lions have been known to do it, giraffes very often. If they're not trying to do that, if it's not love, then it's war, then they're smacking each other with their necks, so they'll stick around, maybe they do start fighting. But at this age, they're both young males, will just be about play. Living up to their Zulu name, the Zulu name for a giraffe is Ndlulamiti, which means taller than the trees. Luckily they've stood next to a tree that they are actually taller than, otherwise they'd have to change their name. Oh wow, he's much taller now. He got a bit of a fright from behind. So the loving approach to establishing dominance has not worked, so now they're reverting to the fighting. This is how giraffes fight. It's a process called necking, where they stand side by side and they wrestle with those ridiculously long necks of theirs. We're not going to go into it now, but in time we will discuss it. But it is one of the believed drivers behind the evolution of these long necks, not so much for avoiding competition to feed, but for actually having a better fighting weapon. But they use those long necks and they club each other. angling those hard oxycones or horns on the head into the opponent. And at this age, as young males, they're not going to be very aggressive towards one another. They're going to be kind of more practicing than actual serious engagement. But once they do have a female to fight over, when they're fully mature males, it can be quite a horrendous thing to see. The auditory accompaniments as they're smacking each other, just these thuds, and they can actually hit each other hard enough to knock the other one out. Some incredible videos on YouTube of giraffes fighting, which people then think happens all the time, but I've only seen 1 or 2 serious fights in my time. This much more common in young males, but yeah, just playing. I have an itch. I do that exact same thing on my girlfriend. It's much easier than using your own hand. Yeah, the art of repositioning. I thought, let's just drive 30 meters away where there's no trees blocking our view, and voila, you now have 2 complete giraffes, not just their necks. You're going to get a whole full display reenactment of what they were doing behind the bush earlier. Now, I've been terrible asking questions of you folks. I keep forgetting in the moment. I talk about these being males. Besides the very obvious reason for them being males, can you tell us how to differentiate between a male and a female giraffe? You can leave your answer in the comments below, and we will report back on our next episode. If you don't know the answer, rather than Googling, just go watch the previous episode and there you'll get your answer. Voila. You see how they almost take it in turns. So as one's swinging, the other won't, which allows it time to duck out the way, or if it is going to get hit, to at least kind of jump a bit and absorb some of the blow, the impact of that big neck swinging towards you. Those skulls of the male giraffes are also very large, and as they get older and engage in more fighting, they do damage to the bone, and more calcium is added so that the skull actually gets heavier as they get older. And this is one of the reasons that the older males are able to dominate the fights. Not only are they taller and longer necks, more powerful necks, but they also have this heavier club on the end of it with which to hit their opponents. But that guy in the front is really not interested. He literally just wants breakfast, and his mate is being far too excited for a Tuesday morning. Got a request a couple of days ago from Peter Hemmer just to announce some of the bird calls that we hear while we're filming, and it's not the first time we've been asked that. Just sitting now after the giraffes, and you can hear quite a few. The common laughing dove calling, but the main background noise that we got here is from our magpie shrikes. I think they appeared on one of our very early episodes. Cape turtle dove, actually, not a laughing dove. A constant drone of an emerald spotted dove in the background. That was much better. That was a good bird call imitation. They're very alive today. It's going to be a perfect day. Nice and warm, sun shining, and probably get up to about 28 degrees out there today. So before it gets too warm, these birds are going to let the world know that they are around. And I think we're going to go see who else is letting us know that they are around. We hear some baboons. Could hear some baboons calling up ahead, so we're going to just go see if we can find them. We had stopped to look at the baboons, and I could smell the scent of. I've really stopped animals from sleeping and wanting them to mate, because this is the elephant bull and must. The baboons running down the road, you might have noticed the big swollen pink calluses on their rear end. That's because those females are in estrus and ready to mate. So it's time for loving in the Timbervalley at the moment. Just listening to them. Incredible sounds they make. One thing you tend to find is that the more social animals become, the more complex their communication systems become. If you look at things like the baboons or the elephants, they've got very, very advanced communication systems, and we could hear that now. I think a little bit of excitement up ahead because there are females in estrus and a couple of the bigger males following them. But often as this troop is walking around, you'll hear those low, just a kind of a contact communication that they're making. Not something we see particularly often. We have got a handful of baboon troops that live around the area, but there's this impression of people that visit this part of the Kruger, or just South Africa and the safari areas in general, that we should be full of baboons. I'm not quite sure where that comes from, because we're not really in a high baboon density area. The highest densities are found along the perennial rivers. There's 7 permanent rivers in the Kruger, and on those you're going to have baboon troops spaced out along them. But away from those perennial rivers, they're not a very common sight. Just try to get forward. They're reacting very much like I was this morning with the wet grass, and why go walking through that when you've got a nice dry sandy road to walk on? So the whole troop's now coming back onto the road, heading off to go feed for the day. They spend the night on the banks of the Sharlumi, just where we've come through now, and then during the daytime they'll go foraging. And they're omnivorous by nature, so they'll mix their diet up between fruits and flowers when those are available. But during the winter months, when there's fewer vegetative sources, they are going to turn their diet to insects. You'll see them turning over stones to look for spiders and scorpions. If they come across any birds' nests with chicks in or eggs, and they'll eat those. And can't say I've ever seen it myself, but they are renowned for catching baby impalas during the lambing season in November, December. These big male baboons will actually go up and grab and kill the baby impalas. But yeah, very varied diet and fascinating animals. Unfortunately, they're not stupid. They know that there's humans driving these cars and show a much greater respect for us than many of the other animals do, and that's why we can't get too close. But it was just a little bachelor group of young male zebras. What happens with them is once they get to a certain age within their own natal group, the dominant stallion is going to chase them out. And rather than living on their own and being much more vulnerable that way, they try to find other young males that are in the same boat as them, that have also been chased away by their fathers, and these youngsters will then group together and form their own little dazzle of zebras, and they will stay like that until they reach a point where they feel they are strong enough to go and actually compete against other stallions to try and establish their own harem. So it's a bit of a waiting game for these boys at the moment. We're talking about this big tambuti tree, Spirostachys africanum. And one thing I often point out to guests is that it's not only the big, hairy and scary animals that can kill you, it's also some of our trees, and this is one of them. What I'm going to do is just wander over to the smaller one here where I can actually reach some of the branches. So what we have with the tambuti, it is one of the more characteristic trees of this low-veld region. Very straight stems, quite a dark, blocky bark that they have, and yeah, one of the more recognizable trees in the area. If you're ever unsure, all you have to do is just come and break off one of these leaves, and you'll see this bit of latex that comes out, that white milky substance. I don't know if you can get that there. Now, as a general rule of thumb in the bush, any tree that has got a latex should be left alone. Fig trees are probably one of the exceptions. But this latex is highly, highly toxic. And although it is traditionally used for medicinal purposes, a drop of this on a sore tooth will help numb the pain. You can put it on boils to prevent infection. Even if you have stomach pains, mixing some of this with porridge, a couple of drops, and eating it with your porridge can help with your stomach pains. If you get the dosages wrong, you're going to be in all sorts of trouble. The way that this tree is actually most likely to affect humans is because it produces quite a hard wood, and this wood looks like it would be a great wood to use for any barbecue out in the bush. It's got a very distinctive smell, and if you smell that, get it off your fire immediately. Not only can the smoke make you nauseous and give you a headache, but if you go as far as cooking your meat on there, the meat's actually going to absorb the toxins from the wood, and if you ingest that, it's not only going to cause you severe stomach pains, but it could actually potentially end up killing you. I have read of in fairness, internet stories of people dying, but it is potentially fatal. So don't just go collecting random wood in the bush if you don't know what you're looking for. An interesting thing that the tree does have is something I've never actually seen here. I should probably pay more attention. But it's got a three-lobed fruit that falls off of it in the summer months. And then the larvae of what we call a knob-thorn moth is going to go lay its egg in there. And you may be familiar with things like Mexican jumping beans. If you eat the beans, the larvae inside start jumping. The same sort of thing happens here. So if the fruit is sitting in the sun, it will start bouncing towards a shady area so that these larvae can cool themselves down while still inside the fruit. And I have had neighboring rangers send me videos, but I've never actually seen it in person. The fruit also have a tendency to explode, which helps disperse their seeds, and then the ground-feeding birds like your doves, your franklins, your guinea fowls will also go and eat the seeds in the fruit. So a potentially dangerous... Oh. Sorry. I don't know what that was. It's like maybe I've absorbed the toxins of this tree. It's like something shot through my nerve there. Where was I? Saying something about the tree. Oh, yes, sorry. One thing I did want to add, is that although the toxicity and the dangers that I speak about are very much related to humans, the animals seem to show no ill effects to this. So they become one of the favorite trees for browsers like black rhinos to feed on if they're in the area. Porcupines will eat on them, nibble on the wood. We can take small fragments of bark as a purgative to help clear out our systems, but if we have too much, you're going to end up with stomach pain again. But when it becomes probably the most desirable to eat is just at the end of summer into autumn, when the leaves start turning this beautiful, beautiful red color. At the moment, they're all kind of green, but they'll turn this stunning red. Trees then actually absorbing the latex back into the cambium layer, and the red leaves are going to fall down, and then you'll get duikers, bushbuck, impalas, all sorts coming and nibbling on that. Maybe fish are not so immune to the poisons. If you were to take some of this latex or the branches and leave it in a small pool of water, like where maybe smaller than where we've seen that heron fishing earlier, it will actually stun the fish, cause them to float to the surface. You can then go scoop them out and eat them, and even though they have been poisoned, the meat is fine. The poison seemed to affect the gills and the respiratory system of the fish, not the meat. So just clean them out, take the meat, and there you go. So won't help me, I don't eat fish, but that is your tambuti tree, Spirostachys africanum, and we will hopefully find some black rhinos feeding on them one day. If we wait here for about 20 years, we should get lucky. You prepared to wait? Silence. I guess that's a no. We have extended our sofa safari into the afternoon, made a few changes. I now have pants that are no longer as holy as this morning, and Brittany's become a bit more masculine behind the camera. So Luke is in charge of this camera now, so if you listen to things like that, you know why. Brittany's sitting on the back with a drink, having a relaxing afternoon. So we're going to see what is out there as always. We are going to be checking the eastern side of our property today to see if those leopards that frustrated Luke so much on his last sofa safari are going to be playing along better for me and my new lucky pants. So let's go see what's out there. Nice covering of green after the rain. I've managed to find spots. It's a mother and a baby. Unfortunately, it's not a mother and a baby leopard, but a mother and a baby giraffe. And another intruder poking in. But yeah, just come across a nice little group of zebras, giraffes, and impalas all gathered together. You might even be able to hear from the audio that the wind is picking up a little bit. And as we've explained on previous windy days, when it gets like this, yes, animals are sensing their vulnerability a little bit more. They can't hear, they can't smell because of the rustling grass, the wind only coming from one direction, so they have a greater tendency to group in multi-species herds. Benefits being that there's more eyes and more ears to look out for danger, as well as safety in numbers. The more of you there are, the less chance you have of being the individual that gets eaten should an attack take place. I'm just going to sit with them for a little bit and see if an attack does take place. You never know. Keep watching. Luke and I had actually just been speaking about a scene like this 10-15 minutes ago, commenting on how great it is to see so many zebras wandering around these parts of the Timbavati again, but we're kind of missing our giraffe, so it's good to see a little group coming back. We have always been renowned as being one of the areas having the highest densities of giraffe in the world, in studies that used to be conducted in the Timbavati and the Klaseri Private Nature Reserve showed that their densities were higher on average than in the Kruger or even in the Serengeti National Park in East Africa. But things have changed. Things have changed for all of these plains game. Zebras, wildebeest, giraffes over the last 20-25 years have all seen slow declines in their numbers within this part of the Great Kruger system. For reasons that we will, again, get into in time. It's quite a long explanation as to why it's happened. But what we do have now is a far more natural setup. Being now part of a big, unfenced, open system of 30,000 square kilometers, these animals have have the opportunity to come and go at different times as they please, depending on the resources. So now that the grazing's still relatively good here, there's water available, zebra herds are going to move in. The giraffes are going to be tied to the presence of the tree that they're busy feeding on now, one of our acacias, the knob-thorn. And when they start flowering, for instance, giraffes move here in big numbers. Last year they failed to flower, and I think because of that our giraffe numbers haven't quite gotten as high as they have been in previous years. But it's good to see. I think as winter pushes on now, we're going to get more and more influx of these general game species into the area because of our permanent water points that are lacking in the Kruger surrounding us. We've also got a bit of Chad in him, all that ginger coming through. It is so fluffy. One thing you may have noticed with the many zebras that we have shown you is that they are not perhaps as white as you would expect. Often because of their habit of rolling in the dust for removing parasites, in areas like this where we have quite a lot of iron oxides in the soils, they tend to stain their coat red. The babies, however, are actually born with a brown tinge to their coat. It just gives them that little bit of extra camouflage ability when they're lying down. Now, when you're born black and white, there's not really such a thing as camouflage ability, but when a foal like that does lie down, that brown tinge to the fur will allow it to blend in much better to the environment than it would otherwise be if it was a clean white. But normally these babies hide in plain sight. You may notice how long its legs are, and if it stays behind its mom and in the middle of the herd, it's actually very difficult to pick out the foals. I mean, it took us quite a few minutes before we spotted this one. But the bottom of its belly is going to be pretty much the same height as the bottom of mom's belly. The little chap is out quite early in the afternoon. We're not even 5 o'clock, still an hour of light left, and we've stumbled upon a... Oh no! Shame. This girl's got a injury on her back right leg. Wasn't putting any weight on it. Sorry, just having a look there at what's happened. Quite swollen. No physical injuries in terms of bite marks or anything like that. So maybe just quite a nasty sprain and probably quite recent. She wasn't putting any pressure on it. And she's looking in great condition, so whatever's happened, it's not affecting her. She was really well fed. But yeah, she's run off into the bush. We're not going to follow. But that's nature. We see this and we think, oh, what's going to happen to these poor things? But it's probably not the first time she's injured a leg, and not going to be the last. And they're hardy, they will push on, they will make it through. So not to worry, back home. She will be fine. You may hear shortly some of the rutting calls of the males since posting our last safari video where we said we'd be chatting a bit more about these rutting impalas as they enter the breeding season. Now they are starting to kickstart their campaign. Already now on our left hand side we've got a nice big bachelor group of rams, so they are only territorial during a very certain time of the year, and that is now, May and June. And what happens is a male stakes out a claim on a piece of land where we are now is perfect for them, nice and open, close to water, got vegetation to browse on the outskirts of this plain, but safe places to come and stay on. And the females are going to want to be there. If you're a good territorial male who's got a prime piece of land, the females will stay on your property. But every other male that's around you is also going to want your property, so you're going to be fighting to keep them out. Your days are spent running around, herding the females back onto your land, keeping them away from the bachelor groups. You can actually see a male now trying to do that, getting the females away from their movements towards this large bachelor herd. And you're going to be chasing these bachelors away, making sure that they don't challenge. But you spend so much time running around chasing that you don't actually spend enough time eating, and you start losing condition. And then one of these boys that have been waiting on the side are going to come in and challenge you for your territory. If they succeed, they will chase you out, and they will take over, and then they will resume this process. As a losing male, you go join a bachelor, and hopefully you can recover your condition in time before the end of the season to have a run at a property or territory again. If not, you have to wait until the next year. But it's still early days. Again, we'll touch more and more on this as they get deeper and deeper into the rut. But already now, you're starting to see the social dynamics change within the Impala world. I managed to find a new pair of pants, and even though I couldn't find any lions or leopards, we did find a gin and tonic and some beer. So from the Sofa Safari team, we're going to be signing off after another terrible day in Africa. Hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we look forward to catching up with you again very, very soon. So cheers back home.
Cheers.
And cheers in real life.
Yeah, it's the real deal. Thank goodness you got new pants.
It's not as breezy down there anymore. It's This is going to be a long bloopers rule if it's me trying to make this sound. I can't whistle. The grass is wet. You can see why lions and leopards don't want to walk in this. I've realized I have a hole in my pants, so I now have to do the rest of the game drive like Michael Jackson.